And so this week we are in the opening chapter of John, which of course so often lies at the heart of our theological reflection on what it means that God is come amongst us in the birth of Jesus Christ. Maybe for you, like me, the first thought when you think of John chapter 1 is the language that John uses in trying to unpack that mystery of the Word made flesh. And certainly that's the framework within which John chapter 1 operates. But we're picking up partway through the chapter, and there is another way that John uses to speak of this mystery, and it is to use the language of light. And it's that image, which actually is used very frequently in this opening chapter, that is, I think, the one to focus on just now. So it's John chapter 1, and we're picking up at verse 10. He was in the world, but the world, though it owed its being to him, did not recognize him. He came to his own, and his own people would not accept him. But to all who did accept him, to those who put their trust in him, he gave the right to become children of God, born not of human stock, by the physical desire of a human father, but of God. So the Word became flesh, he made his home among us, and we saw his glory, such glory as befits the Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. John bore witness to him and proclaimed, "This is the man of whom I said, he comes after me, but ranks ahead of me. Before I was born, he already was." From his full store we have all received grace upon grace. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God, God's only Son, he who is nearest to the Father's heart, has made him known. So there is a mystery, of course, at the heart of our experience of God, and it runs right through the scriptural witness on which our theology is based, and is this, that though God is surely there, God's glory cannot be seen face to face by human beings. Moses, of course, famously is the exception to that rule, but even in the story of Moses' direct experience of God is very carefully framed and veiled, and is very much the exception. And I think in John's use of light imagery in this opening chapter, that is maybe the principle on which around which to understand what John is saying. And I would put it like this, that what John is describing here in the arrival of Jesus, the coming of Jesus amongst us, that is as if there is a light in our midst that we cannot see. And of course that's profoundly paradoxical, but absolutely fits in with that bit of theology that God's glory cannot be seen face to face by human beings. Here is Jesus, the light of the world, the one who brings the very light of God into the world, and yet human beings cannot see it. And John uses, if you like, three levels, I think, of understanding. First of all, there is that sense of recognition that we cannot recognize the light of God, the glory of God in Jesus Christ, for that central mystery of theology that no human being can see God face to face. That the light comes amongst us, we cannot see it. But we do nonetheless have a choice, and again this runs right through our scriptural witness. We do have the choice to accept that the light is there, the glory of God is there, even though it may be hidden from us for whatever mysterious or paradoxical reasons. We can accept that the light of God, the love of God, the purposes of God are at work even when they are not evident to us. We can live a life of acceptance. But there's a third layer, I think, to John's language here. That acceptance needs something more before it is true faith. It needs trust. It means that we are actually living, showing that acceptance in the reality, in the decisions, in the way in which we live. There's a little exercise that's often used in youth groups in my youth, though I suspect it wouldn't pass any health and safety risk assessment these days, where somebody stands on a chair with their back to the rest of the group, and the rest of the group link their arms in a kind of safety net, and the person falls backwards into their arms, a picture of trust. Don't try this at home. I suspect it wouldn't meet any health and safety requirements these days. Isn't that what trust is? It's not just knowing that there are people behind you who will catch you if you fall, but it's actually making that step, that action of trusting yourself to them, of leaning back and allowing yourselves to fall. And so for John, the light is amongst us. We cannot recognize it always. We cannot see it because that's the mystery of God. We can accept that the light is there, and then we can trust. We can actually live out actions that show our acceptance of that light. And then, John says, I think, we become children of light. It's not a phrase that John uses here, but he will do later in his gospel. And so wrapped around with that word becoming flesh is this sense of living lives that show acceptance and trust of the presence of God's light amongst us in Jesus Christ, that illuminates all that we do, that shows our trust that God's love and God's purposes are being worked out, however hidden they may be, to our present gaze. Let's live that life of trust in the light we know in Jesus Christ.